actually would want to speak to any of the individuals who might be listening to this session about who might be interested in being able to pursue an MD PhD program and let them know that you are, especially if you come from a diverse background, that you are uniquely positioned to help your community. Don't allow any naysayers or doubt to cloud your judgment as to why you belong in the spaces that you occupy. There's a reason why you're there. Your unique experiences and your background can really help uplift your community if you know how to use the knowledge that you're learning and to the best advantage, especially when thinking about strategically putting yourself in situations and in leadership positions that will help you to sort of advocate for your community at the table.
Welcome to the Cobb and Company podcast series. I'm Dr. Randall Morgan, the president and CEO of the W. Montague Cobb NMA Health Institute. It is my pleasure today to have a discussion with Nina Uzoigwe, who is an outstanding medical student as well as a doctoral student based in New York, and as a leader of the Student National Medical Association. This association was founded in 1964, and it is a fundamental part of the existence of the National Medical Association. And we are thrilled that Nina and her team on the administrative side of the SNMA have desired to work so closely with the W. Montague Cobb NMA Health Institute. One of the areas of collaboration is in the area of research. And so we're going to focus on that conversation today because that is the specialty, one of the specialties that Nina has chosen for her life work. So good morning, Nina.
Good morning. Thank you so much for that warm welcome.
And tell us, please, about yourself.
I'm thrilled and honored to be here joining you for the Cobb and Company podcast. And it's an honor and privilege to be a part of this conversation and this platform where we're talking about excellence in storytelling. Again, my name is Nina Uzoigwe. I'm a Brooklyn native and also a Stuyvesant alum who's very proud of being able to come from that high school. I also am currently a MD PhD candidate at NYU Grossman School of Medicine. As a daughter of Nigerian immigrant parents and also coming from Harvard, where I studied bioengineering with a secondary in global health policy, to now doing global cardiac surgery research and being able to address surgical capacity, I found that my journey thus far has been very well shaped by my commitment to service, to scholarship, and also for being able to basically produce systematic change. Again, I currently serve as a member of the board of directors of the Student National Medical Association and oversee the research arm of the SNMA. And so just being able to sort of see how we can diversify the face of medicine through health equity work and things of that nature is very important and central to the way that I view my mission on this earth. So I'm very excited to talk about my path, my journey, my passions, and also engage in this discussion with you today, this morning.
Well, thank you. And I always find it interesting when you have an opportunity to do some of your training or a lot of your training near your home. And tell me how that feels in terms of being in the greater New York area after being raised in Brooklyn. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I remember very fondly my time when I was interviewing for the NYU Medical Scientist Training Program. This was at the very midst of the COVID pandemic in 2020 year. I remember being interviewed and asked this question, why do you want to come back to New York City? Because at the time I was interviewing from Boston, where I was at Harvard. And I realized at that moment that I really wanted to come back and serve my community and just be able to sort of really give back to the community to help build and shape the person I am today. Thinking back to my clinical rotations where I got to serve patients in Brooklyn, in Manhattan, and different, the VA, the public health centers, the private centers, being able to sort of see how this community that's been very central to who I am today in terms of the representation, the diversity, the people who are very vocal when I walk down the street, and just the homeliness and how everyone feels so grounded and down to earth. Being able to give back in that way and see patients and hear their stories and help them get the help that they need has been very motivating to me in my career. So I'm very grateful to have the opportunity and the blessing to sort of serve within the Brooklyn area and also within New York City at large.
Yes, I think you're very fortunate to have been raised in that area and also to go to such a prestigious high school and obviously a prestigious university as well at Harvard. But it's always good, I think, when people are able to come back home.
Absolutely.
And to relate in so many different ways, more than you really believe. Once you get started in practice, and start to take care of patients who actually had the same lived experiences that you did.
Mhm.
It's even more exciting. So congratulations, at least on making that decision to this point. You have a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to talk about that today.
Mhm.
Tell us more about the pathway that you're on. Obviously, you're in medical school, but you're also at the same time pursuing other studies. Could you
Absolutely.
explain that program and what it means?
Absolutely. So the MD PhD program is basically a program that helps prepare students to become medical doctors and also scientific researchers. And the goal here basically is to bridge science and medicine, where students are trained to think about how to ask clinically relevant questions in a scientific manner and take the research they do at the bedside to the bedside, being able to improve patient outcomes. And so a lot of these students who end up going through this 7 to 8 years of training end up doing a lot of work in academic medicine and being able to do biomedical research and also clinical trials and of course public health leadership, especially when thinking about our beloved Dr. David Satcher, who was the first African American US Surgeon General and also the first CDC director. So being able to be at the intersection of innovation and healthcare is very important, and being able to go through these programs helps prepare you in a unique way.
Tell me specifically about why you chose NYU, why NYU chose you, and how that marriage is working out.
I decided to come to NYU because I knew going to an MD PhD program, this would be a decade long commitment in terms of where I practice medicine, how I learned to develop my personal and professional development, and also where I consider to be home and family. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, so my home is literally 45 minutes away from where I stay in terms of the hospital system and where I live in terms of the housing there. And I also was very blown away by the cardiology department, the CT surgery department there at NYU, just how much ground they were able to cover over the course of the last few years when I was applying. I'm very passionate about cardiothoracic surgery and being able to increase global health equity, especially when it comes to healthcare access in low risk settings. And so being able to work within the NYU system and learn from leaders in this field, surgeons who are working so effortlessly and tirelessly to make innovative solutions for thoracic surgery and cardiac surgery was something that I found to be an all-in-one package, in addition to being very close to family and home, and also just being in an institution that really strives for excellence in all that it does.
And in your training so far, do you see that you have the full spectrum of patients?
I definitely do. So we have access to being able to work in Bellevue, which is one of the oldest public health systems in New York City. I spent several times during my clinical rotation seeing patients from all different backgrounds within that environment: immigrants, people who are uninsured, people who wouldn't otherwise have access to healthcare, and being able to advocate for them, whether it be in OBGYN or in neurology, really helped fortify my commitment for being able to really help support underserved communities. We also have access to the VA, so we get to work very closely with our veterans. We also work within the Tisch Hospital, the private hospitals there. So you really get to really understand the bread and butter of what it means to serve a very diverse patient population, which is what brought me to NYU. And I really am very thankful for that because it really has helped me shape the kind of person that I want to be in terms of how I want to serve the people that I'm around and the communities that I come from.
Very good. So describe for us the MD PhD program with
Mhm.
a few more specifics. We hope to encourage colleagues of yours and those that aspire to go to medical school to consider both the medical care
Mhm.
of patients as well as the research side of medicine. And so would you describe the pathway to this point, how it has been designed, and have you made any modifications in that pathway to this point?
Yeah, so typically the traditional MD PhD pathway consists of 2 years of medical school, your first and second years, and then you have 4 years of your PhD, and then you have the last 2 years of your MD. So you're able to complete both the MD and the PhD in 7 to 8 years based on your institution. At NYU, things are done differently, where they allow us to be able to do the first 3 years of med school, then the 4 years of PhD, and then the last year of the MD. And so I think that in itself is really great because I feel after doing my clinical rotations, taking my board exams, being able to interact with patients, reaffirming my commitment to cardiology and cardiothoracic surgery, it allows me to have a more clinically focused lens when doing research. Right now, I'm working in the Fishman lab, focused on being able to look at cardiac arrhythmias and being able to sort of see how things work with echocardiograms and EKGs, and really apply the things that I'm doing at the bedside to the things that I'm seeing at the bedside. Really helps me in terms of my clinical and scientific acumen. And so I find this this way of learning and being able to go through an MD PhD program to be a lot more fulfilling and rewarding because you could really see the translation between the things that you're doing scientifically and medically. And I hope to sort of carry this fire and this passion that I have as I go into my electives and my sub-Is and apply to residency in the future.
So I'm sure that's reassuring to you at this point. And I'd never thought about the difference between the first 2 years and then adding the 3rd year, because you
Absolutely.
really with the curriculum today in medical school, as well as the fact that they are pushing a lot of clinical experience into the first 2 years of medical school, you get a rich, preparation
Mhm.
and an understanding, I think, of the choices in terms of clinical practice, which then must inform what you do
Mhm.
in research and the choices that you make in terms of your research interest.
So I knew that I was very interested in cardiology and cardiothoracic surgery after doing a my thesis in undergrad at Harvard, where I got to work very closely with cardiothoracic surgeons at Boston Children's Hospital, focused on being able to address a congenital heart disease called tetralogy of Fallot. And after that experience where I got to work with a team of bioengineers and sort of look through the surgical operating table and sort of see like how you have to sort of think very scientifically in terms of materials that you're using, the biomaterials for the patients that you're dealing with to really reduce the surgical burden, and also how you have to be very hands-on in terms of thinking 3D and geometrically. I found myself to be very in love with CT surgery and the space, and I knew that I wanted to sort of apply my bioengineering background into this as well. So going into med school, I kind of knew that I wanted to do CT surgery and cardiology. And so being able to go through my preclinicals and my lectures and doing my clinical rotations, every time at every point, I found myself falling more and more in love. It was the one lecture series that I found myself waking up at 3 a.m. or 4 o'clock in the morning, studying textbooks and getting really energized and excited about the things that I'm learning in a way that was not what I felt in GI or any of the other organ systems that we learned about. And even when working on the cardiothoracic surgery service, I could be in the OR for 8 hours or 10 hours at a time and not know how much time has gone by. And so being able to see myself fall in love with this field time and time again in different ways and outputs really drew me to this space. Knowing that I wanted to have a global impact in my career, and especially when it comes to specialty, I also recognize that I want to become an expert. And becoming an expert means being able to do basic science research in addition to clinical and being able to have the surgical acumen. And so that really led my affinity toward being able to get involved in the cardiology basic science lab research laboratory, basically. And so that being said, I kind of like was able to sort of go through a series of different labs, kind of like go through the interviews with different PIs and sort of figure out what would be a best match in terms of mentorship, in terms of the lab environment where I felt the most challenged, felt the most like I guess pushed to become more like anonymous in my ability to be able to be a scientist and a leader. And I found that to be found in the Fishman lab. And ever since I've been there, I've seen myself grow exponentially, being able to sort of talk about science, being able to talk about cardiac arrhythmias, and being able to translate that to clinical outcomes in terms of different types of diseases has been really formidable for me. And I really love how this has been such a rewarding experience.
Well, I think you're very fortunate to have, even at this point in your training,
Hmm.
a 360 view of where you are and where you want to go
Hmm.
and how things relate
Yeah,
to each other. And probably because you had the clinical experience early on, it has accelerated, I think, your understanding of what the
absolutely.
impact can be as a research scientist.
I will add that there are a lot of different barriers, especially for your underrepresented minority students in MD PhD programs, and one of them is that lack of exposure to early research and clinical exposure as well. I didn't actually know about the MD PhD program until my junior year at college at Harvard, and I only found it incidentally by my PI telling me casually that you should apply for an MD PhD program, and I was like, "Wait, what's that?" And she was like, "It's a program where you get to learn how to be a scientist and a doctor." And I was like really interested by how she was talking about all these different things. And being able to sort of recognize how my I guess lack of early exposure really opened my eyes to the importance of being able to sort of create environments where people are learning about the MD PhD pathway from a very early onset. We need to be having a lot of efforts when it comes to being able to address students in high schools and community centers and churches and things of that nature and different other summer programs to help students know that this is an option for them and really try to focus on recruitment, where these stories typically begin when you're very young in middle school and high school and trying to figure out what your voice is and things of that nature. And being able to see this also led to my I guess my idea with a team of other students at NYU, where we founded the Rise Up program, which is basically a high school outreach program for high school students in New York City, more specifically Brooklyn, that's focused on being able to expose them to the physician scientist pathway, the first of its kind, where students are not only able to work with MD, PhD students, but also with PhD students and get a clinical immersion where they're doing anatomy labs, they're doing pathology, they're doing different types of reading radiology imaging, and being able to have that hands-on experience has made a huge difference in the way that they view medicine. I remember very fondly during our end of year presentations where we have the students give a 5 to 10 minute talk about the research they've done. There was one student from Brooklyn who did a research project on VEXA syndrome, which is basically an autoinflammatory disease that's X-linked that very much affects blood and the bone marrow. And mid-presentation, when talking about her cell culture results, she broke down in tears. She was very moved by the fact that as she was speaking out to an audience of chairs of departments and faculty and graduate students and MD PhD students, that she was uniquely positioned as a high school student to talk about the research that she's done over the course of the last 3 to 4 weeks, not knowing what this was 5 or 6 weeks ago. And so being able to be at the forefront of change and really try to tell these students that you can do this too. Like she kept on saying, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe that this is something that I'm a part of, that I'm doing this. I never thought a person like me from Brooklyn is able to do this. And she was just crying profusely. And that was a very memorable moment throughout the entire presentation. And so being able to create environments where we're able to drop those seeds of belief into the minds of these budding scientists and doctors is really important and essential for being able to inspire the next generation of leaders. And it's not until we start to do this and try to pour into these pipeline programming and try to sort of push the needle forward in this initiative that we won't be able to see the changes that we need to see on the higher levels, basically.
Is this a summer program, the Rise Up program?
Yeah, it's a Rise Up the Summer program.
And who do you think is most effective at recruiting students to be in the Rise Up program?
So I definitely do think that grassroots efforts is very important for being able to recruit students not only within the Rise Up program for any pipeline programs. What we do specifically is we typically are able to reach out to principals or the administrations of different high schools and offer the opportunity for us to give a presentation about the MD PhD program and tell their students about what it is, what it entails, what the MD and PhD programs like separately and together would entail for their careers. And then from there, we pitch the Rise Up program and have an application that they apply to in the very beginning of that year, in January, and sort of read their applications and go through the whole application process. But I think what really helps increase the number of applicants that we get every year is being able to go out to those schools individually, talk to these students, being the representation that they need to see in flesh and blood. Because it's one thing to sort of say, oh, this exists, this is a program that you can do, but being able to sort of say that you can do this too. I come from the same background as you. There's no hindrance that will stop you from being able to engage in this and not for yourself. So I think that being able to go out there, having people that are able to speak to the backgrounds of those that they're trying to recruit, and also being very genuine and very purposeful and intentional with that outreach can make a huge difference in being able to increase the participation within programs like Rise Up.
Now, is Rise Up an NYU program, or is it more broad than that?
So Rise Up was founded with me as well as some other people at NYU who are in the now MD PhD program at NYU. And right now it is fully funded by the Promoter Cancer Center. And so we're able to provide stipends for all of our students for the whole summer, and they are compensated for their travels and things of that nature. So it really is able to sort of bring down that financial barrier that we typically see with high school students, especially as a person who's also been in the city and as a high schooler. It's really hard to do a summer program in research in science and also be able to provide for your family depending on what your social economic status is. And so it's a program that's been greatly supported by NYU and its faculty and its membership. And we are really looking forward to sort of seeing how we can grow the Rise Up program moving forward within this space.
And you were one of the founders of this program?
That's correct.
Well, that's remarkable. It's now how many years?
This is his fourth year.
Fourth year.
Yeah.
And you have how many participants?
So we typically have about 10 participants a year. Mm-hmm.
That's manageable.
Mm-hmm.
Have you written this up? And
we are in the process of doing that.
Yes. Oh, good.
Yeah.
So we'll be very interested in seeing that
Mhm.
that report. In the Cobb Institute, we have a pathways and pipeline
Mhm.
committee that has been very active and looking for any type of new or novel way of stimulating interest,
Mhm.
particularly in research.
Absolutely.
Uh, One of the difficult problems that we've had is that those who are COP scholars, by definition, are those who have completed their medical training, their terminal degree. And
Mhm.
so they're within the first 15 years of having completed the terminal degree. But if they haven't had experience as an undergraduate or a medical student in research, it's very difficult to
Mm.
get involved in research when you're a resident,
Mhm.
unless you're in a special program where there's research going on and you have a mentor who is going to make it possible for you along with your other resident duties. That being said, do you have residents that support the Rise Up program as well?
We definitely do. We try to, again, ensure that our students have a lot of engagement with clinical immersion and the clinical realm of being a physician scientist. And so we have panels of residents from general surgery, from pediatrics, from geriatrics, and just being able to have these residents talk about their journeys, why they chose medicine, different challenges that they experience, especially as URM students, really brings down the glass barrier that typically is seen, especially when seeing a pediatric patient talking to a doctor, and helps them feel more at home, more like this is something that they can do, and makes the entire journey of this becoming a doctor become less daunting. And so the residents are very, very hands-on with being able to support our students and being able to give that feedback, that help, that mentorship, and just their mere presence, the representation. Again, it's not symbolic, it's strategic in a way that it's being able to help with recruitment, with retention, with their ability to imagine themselves and see themselves and having a sense of belonging in STEM and success. And so it's really great just being able to see the love, the encouragement, the empowerment that these students feel, especially when thinking about what they want to do in the future. And I also want to point out that several of our students are now like at NYU, at Cornell, at different graduate undergrad institutions, and very interested in becoming physician scientists once they start to apply for graduate positions. And so just being able to see the long-term impact of this program has been very rewarding.
And so I'm sure that will be a part of your report, the data,
Yep, yep, yep.
the tracking of these students to this point.
Mhm.
How would you propose that a program like that be expanded to perhaps other communities or maybe even other locations within the greater New York area?
Mhm. But I will say that we are actively working on being able to generate a blueprint for the program that we have and documenting everything very diligently to ensure that in the event that another program within New York City or in a different city that has the support infrastructure to support a program like this, they're able to implement it. I think one thing that has been really great for us is that NYU has been very supportive of being able to support outreach efforts, especially to high school students who wouldn't otherwise have the ability to engage in research, to engage in clinical activities. And so being able to work in a conducive environment is also very imperative for having a successful program like this. In addition to having the resources and having the clinicians and the different places where the students can work in. So I think overall we've been very fortunate to have the ability to be able to execute the vision that we had at the very it was during my first year of medical school that we went from just being an idea to having it be fully funded by Hope Cancer Center and like looking into being able to expand into different like areas and regions within New York City. But it's important to note that we've been very fortunate to have a supportive system within the space that we are operating in to sort of see it move forward.
Where was the first evidence of the support that you had from NYU? And
So the medical scientist training program director at that time, Dr. Mark Phillips, was very much involved in being able to increase representation in MD PhD programs. And so he was able to do regular visits to schools like Brooklyn Tech in terms of being able to get students more aware of what the MD PhD programs involved. But one thing that we were trying to sort of see is how to exactly create a program where students can come to NYU specifically and get involved with our research graduates and also with our faculty and really get to understand what it means to do the research side of things. And then with my team, we kind of wanted to include the clinical part of it, where we're trying to sort of not only have these students understand, okay, this is how you do cell culture or how you pipette and do like concentration curves and things of that nature, but this is how you take things that you're learning in the lab and apply it to how you see patients. So in addition to learning all the basic scientific skills that they need, they're also learning how to do a history and physical. They're also, again, going to anatomy labs, learning about the GI tract, learning about the cardiopulmonary system. They are going to pathology and sort of seeing how different sections of the brain are operating within the human body. They are really getting their hands dirty and trying to understand what it means to be a doctor and also a scientific researcher and meld the two worlds together, which a lot of students don't really get to have the exposure to at a very young age. And so there were several students who came in saying that they wanted to become a nurse or they wanted to be at the very they were sort of interested in becoming a healthcare professional, but they weren't really sure, which is why they wanted to do the program. But after going through it, it really affirmed their commitment for being able to apply to medical school or any kind of healthcare profession and try to be at the forefront of healthcare delivery and innovation. And so it's been really great to sort of work in an environment where there were already seeds of this program already there, and then we were able to add the clinical aspect of things and see it grow over the course of the 4 years has been very rewarding.
So often it is difficult to speak to young people
Mhm,
who are in middle school or high school and have them believe that they could actually be a doctor. I mean, on
mhm,
a very basic level.
mhm,
What you're speaking of is even more advanced because these students are getting clinical experience in the field of medicine,
mhm,
understanding the different subspecialties, and then even beginning to understand how there's a certain interconnectedness that
absolutely.
makes it very relevant and
Mhm,
very exciting.
mhm,
How can we make this a more successful endeavor on a national level? Because what's being done in New York and Brooklyn and so forth is so unique,
mhm,
but it's so needed that we are able to replicate it in some way, at least to make it more clear what the opportunities are
mhm,
for students. I have been involved in a lot of mentoring programs through my years in medicine, and I practiced 30 years in my hometown. So that was also like you, it was very exciting to go back to my hometown. And we had an innovative program there, it was called a prep program.
mhm,
And it was a Saturday program throughout the year, but we had medicine, we had dentistry, we had law, we had
mhm.
engineering and business as options for students. But to one of the things that we did not do was to keep the data because it was just kind of like exposure,
Yep.
and we weren't thinking really about impact
Mhm,
as much as exposure.
mhm.
How can we make sure that we are more successful not only in recording outcomes, but also having positive effects with these type of mentoring programs on the high school
Level.
level where you encourage but you don't overwhelm? How are you able to balance that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to start off by saying how important it is to have these programs at the get-go, whether it's at a local or regional or a national level. Again, MD, PhD students who come from diverse backgrounds are very much likely to identify healthcare disparities, to really do culturally sensitive research projects, and also think about innovative solutions for underserved communities. And it's important to note that Black students make up only 7% of the medical school student enrollees as of 2023, according to the AMC, despite taking up 13% of the US population. And even thinking about MD, PhD programs as a whole, Black students only represent 3%, less than 3%, in fact. And so it's very clear to us that the MD PhD program lacks significantly behind the basic medical school matriculation programs in terms of recruitment. And so being able to have these programs from the get-go and really show this representation is essential and important for our students as a whole. And so I think there has to be some sort of way in which we're able to recruit these students and have these programs on a national platform like the SNMA or the NMA in the Cobb Institute, where students are able to see that this is a program where I can get involved in and get engaged in, and having representation at these levels levels, where you have students from all these different backgrounds, from Brooklyn, like I am, or from Chicago, could be really helpful in terms of being able to help these students recognize that they can too, and that they're also capable of being able to achieve these great things and get involved in these programs. I think there also has to be a lot more support in terms of being able to educate these students, especially in low resource settings or in different neighborhoods that have at low SES backgrounds, about the fact that this is an option for them. Again, when being able to go out to these high schools and talk to them, a lot of them don't really know that this is a program that exists. They don't know that you could apply to get funding from into the medical scientist training program, where the NIH is able to provide a stipend over the course of your 7 to 8 years. And so being able to sort of create this awareness and let people know that this is a program that they get involved in could really increase that applicant pool that we're looking for. And so I think being able to sort of work from these different avenues could be very important and very essential in moving the needle forward on this initiative.
So how many high schools are you working with?
So right now we are working on with two different high schools, but again, we've historically the MD PhD program has visited other high schools to sort of see how basically help inform the students as to what it means to become an MD PhD student. And so we are hoping to expand this in the future years as we begin to build the blueprint and the idea of what it means to run a program of this capacity, especially since we have a lot of moving parts with different clinicians and researchers and PIs. And so we are looking forward to expansion, but as of right now, this is where we are in terms of movement.
How long did it take you to get buy-in from the faculty and administration of the high schools in
Of the
order
high
to make
schools.
of the high schools in order to make this program come to fruition?
I think the fact that we as medical students or MD, PhD students were reaching out to them caught them by surprise, and they were more than happy to sort of have us speak up to their students. Again, these students are very interested in science and medicine, but didn't really have the toolkit or the words or the vocabulary to sort of talk about the things that they're interested in. And knowing that this was a need that their students had, and that we were able to sort of provide this freely without being paid. Again, we're volunteering to provide this information and really try to support the next generation of leaders, was a huge like they were all over it in terms of being able to have us there. So I think the fact that there isn't enough programs like this where you're having students go out to different high school communities and talk to students about what it means to this career pathway in general, makes a huge difference in being able to sort of really try to engage people in this kind of pipeline programming.
I see so many opportunities here, and I know you do as well, and we're trying to go one step at a time,
Hmm.
to assure success is always a challenge. But I think that given the platform that we have with the Cobb Institute, as well as with SNMA and NMA, that it's important to be able to inform members,
Hmm.
to inform high school science teachers, administrators
Hmm.
of the possibilities of such a specialized program for specialized students. Because
Hmm.
this isn't for everybody, but
Yeah.
it's such a great opportunity. I think it would be wonderful if we could maybe have some training videos or Zoom call conferences where high school teachers
Hmm.
could hear you and others talk about the impact that you've been able to make on high school students in Brooklyn.
Hmm.
Because it would then translate to Chicago and would translate to Indianapolis and other places. So where perhaps you're not ready or we're not ready to have this level of program that you've described
Hmm.
everywhere, or even 5 more locations, to understand the possibilities, I think would empower the teachers in high school to push the students a little bit more and show them what is possible
Hmm.
and how they can seek it.
Hmm.
Most of us that are in medicine now, and particularly in the early days, were influenced either by special programs in some of the universities that had summer programs.
Hmm.
I was as well, and that goes all the way back to the early '60s. And so it wasn't just happenstance. I didn't just stumble into being a physician or an orthopedic surgeon. There was
Yeah.
programs, there were individuals that made sure that I move forward, and I
Mhm.
understood where I was going.
Yep.
And so I think this is an innovative way of introducing the physician scientist
Mhm.
as a career.
Absolutely.
And I applaud all of you for developing the program, but I don't want you to underestimate the impact that the program can have. And so maybe at a certain point, at least to share it with
Mhm.
a larger audience
Yep.
might be a good idea.
Absolutely, and I think that's definitely in the works. I think also one thing I also want to bring to light is in addition to being able to increase recruitment for MD, PhD programs, we also have to think about the retention process. And another barrier that a lot of MD, PhD students who are URM experience is a sense of social isolation and cultural isolation, especially since there are very few faculty at their institutions that come from their background. They go through a lot of micro and macro aggressions, as said before. And these things, in addition to the struggles of what it means to be a medical student and a researcher, leads to a lot of attrition rates, higher attrition rates in comparison to their counterparts. As a Black woman from Brooklyn who's doing an MD, PhD, I resonate very well, and I understand the challenges that comes with being very few in a population of those in a population where you are one of the few, basically. And so even when thinking about my transition from middle school to high school, I was even told that I should not apply for the specialized high school. I shouldn't take the exam because it was very unlikely that I'd get in by one of my guidance counselors. And so being able to sort of experience that at a very young age where I was told that I couldn't do something because of the stats or because of what things have been done historically was very jarring for me. And it wasn't if it wasn't for my mother and my family telling me you can still do it, I wouldn't have taken the exam. I wouldn't have scored in the top 3% of over 30,000 students in New York City who take it every year. And again, I feel like I was the first person within my middle school to get accepted into Stuyvesant. And so I feel like throughout my entire journey, I've been the first of many different levels of my training. And it really helps me to appreciate the importance of representation and being able to really push forward with recruitment and being able to create a sense of success within these spaces. And I've really used my uniqueness and my visibility as one of very few to really create a story or create a legacy of purpose and being able to inspire the next generation. And I definitely do feel, especially when being the MD PhD program as a whole too, the SNMA has played a pivotal role in my ability to see myself strive in this space. Again, I'm connected to a huge consortium of different national leaders who are physician scientists, medical students, and being able to be surrounded by a community of people that are able to validate my emotions and things that I experience, who are able to speak life over me and talk about the goals that I have in terms of vision for being able to increase diversity in healthcare has been a remarkable experience for me too, and I feel like I have a unique position, especially as working as one of the board of directors for the SNMA, because not only do I get to sort of see how things are working nationally in terms of public policy and things of this nature, but also I'm able to relate this to what we're seeing in terms of how these policies are trickling down and impacting student realities, especially when thinking about anti-DEI legislation in medical schools and just being able to create an environment where people feel safe and able to do equity driven research. So it's been a very interesting experience from that point of view.
No, very, very, very interesting. And kind of as we begin to summarize our discussion today, and the questions that I would have are given what's going on now, the renewed interest in physician scientists as a career,
Mhm.
and the focus in the SNMA, what can the Cobb Institute do to assist in that role, and how can we assist each other to make that a reality for more students?
That's a really great question that you pose, and I feel like there is so many different areas for collaboration. As the Diversity Research Committee co-chair, I help to oversee a lot of the research, again, the research arm of the SNMA, and we are very involved in so many different programming when it comes to being able to support medical scientist training programs, being able to sort of lead different types of ways in which student physicians can get involved in research, and being able to sort of see like how we can work together in terms of building a program that focuses and targets students who might be interested in doing the MD PhD program, who might be interested in learning, okay, how do I write an abstract? How do I publish a publication? How do I read through a paper? The basic toolkit that's necessary to help them feel empowered and have the vocabulary and the literature to understand what it means to be a scientist is very important. And so I definitely do think that there are several different areas of opportunity, whether it be through a series of webinars or a joint program where we're basically recruiting students who might need mentorship or more of a community based learning experience where they're able to really have hands on support, or even just being able to speak at different conferences and recruit students who might be interested and want to sort of have a cursory understanding of what this role entails can play a huge role in being able to inspire the next generation. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these stories that I hear, especially from the ground, is that these students don't know that these things exist. And being able to plant these seeds can play a huge role in their and plant and water these seeds could play a huge role in the way that they view themselves in these environments and allow them to seek the resources and the opportunities for things that they don't see or can't see around them. So those are great ways in which we can collaborate for sure.
The Cobb Institute has had opportunities to impact a lot of students
Mhm.
and residents. And part of it is to maintain that relationship and to provide the necessary tools and excitement and interest on an ongoing basis and
Mhm.
not just an episodic basis.
Mhm.
So that requires partners, that requires infrastructure, that requires funding,
Mhm.
and it requires persistence. And so I think those are the areas that we need to have a think tank about. What are the roles that SNMA can play?
Mhm.
What are the roles that the Cobb Institute should play?
Mhm.
What are the roles that other institutions should play
Mhm.
to achieve the goal of more research scientists? Because we certainly can't do it alone with the Cobb Institute,
Mhm.
and SNMA can't do it alone because you're students and you have responsibilities as well. I don't understand how you all are able to be as productive as you are. I'm so proud of what goes on
We are standing
at
on the
SNMA.
yeah, we're standing on the shoulders of the giants who came before us. So it's only
But even
by
at that, it's you got to balance yourself on the shoulders. And
that's
how you
true.
all are able to do that with the complexity of science
Mhm.
and the advancements, technology at the same time, and
Mhm.
have these worldly, let's say, views, but also what you see as being so important
Mhm.
to translate it to young people who've not had any experience whatsoever. I think that's probably the key to understanding how we can close the gap with underrepresented students and give them an opportunity. Hopefully, we can come up with the key to keeping the process going
Mhm.
and inducing funders and foundations, those that really are able to support this type of an effort, and particularly in today's times where the federal government support is less in the short term.
Mhm.
We don't know about the long term,
Yep.
but we do now know how important it is to increase the number of physician scientists. The strategy of trying to make that happen in the midst of uncertain funding,
Mhm.
I think, is a fundamental challenge for all of our organizations.
Absolutely, and it require a lot of collaboration, multiple meetings, but as long as we have the same, like, goal in mind and purpose, I definitely do think it's achievable, whether it be on a local level, a regional level, or a national level. It's just a matter of being able to organize and come together and stay committed to the true cause and be focused on being able to uplift the next generation.
A the NMA, I think 2 or 3 years ago, had a survey
Mhm.
of the members, and particularly new members, who stated or checked off reasons why they joined the National Medical Association. And to participate in research was like 12 out of 13.
Mhm.
So it's not something that's first of mind with a lot of people that are joining the NMA or people obviously that are in practice.
Mhm.
How can we increase that interest, because I think that's part of what we have to do in order to be able to support the innovative programs that you are involved in. If everyone loses the interest,
Yeah.
what's going to sustain these programs?
I think an important part of this conversation is being able to advertise or put out programming that talks about the importance of research, especially when it comes to policymaking, especially when it comes to different ways in which we're able to evaluate our patients and give treatment, delivery, and care. I feel like this messaging tends to get muddled in the chaos of the universe that is. But I feel like being able to sort of talk about this more profoundly, being able to sort of generate reels or TikToks and social media that talks about the importance of research and why it's so important that people get engaged, not only by the time you become a physician, but as a medical student or as a high schooler, is super important. And so I think there has to be a lot more awareness and distribution of this knowledge so that people can understand that research is not just research is not only just like being able to do research at a bench side, it's also doing clinical translational research. It's also going out and figuring out what things within your environment aren't working and what is working. What can we do to, what kind of data driven solutions can develop to sort of address these issues at hand and in play, especially when it comes to being able to improve our communities, better patient outcomes, and try to ensure that we are working for everyone's benefit. And so I think there has to be better messaging about how research can be used to better society. And then from there, that would help lead way for being able to support the other arms that we're talking about as well.
So I think we've identified next steps. I don't know what's number one, number two, number three,
Hmm.
but I do know that the will to make it a success and make it a collaborative effort
Hmm.
is there. And we look forward to working with you, certainly, and with the board and with SNMA to not only develop new programs, but to document
Absolutely.
what we're doing,
Hmm.
and then to prove to NIH, to prove to academia across the country that these types of efforts are worthwhile.
They definitely are. There definitely are.
So I look forward to having that opportunity. And would you want to give us some final views of or your elevator speech on what's next?
I actually would want to speak to any of the individuals who might be listening to this session about who might be interested in being able to pursue an MD PhD program and let them know that you are, especially if you come from a diverse background, that you are uniquely positioned to help your community. Don't allow any naysayers or doubt to cloud your judgment as to why you belong in the spaces that you occupy. There's a reason why you're there. Your unique experiences and your background can really help uplift your community if you know how to use the knowledge that you're learning and to the best advantage, especially when thinking about strategically putting yourself in situations and in leadership positions that will help you to sort of advocate for your community at the table. Being a doctor, being a physician scientist isn't just about being able to master science and medicine. It's also being able to really use the wisdom and knowledge that you have to create opportunities to bring other people up with you. And so I definitely want to emphasize to them that you are where you are because of how great you are, that you should not allow any kind of sense of imposter syndrome to really spark down your light, and that they should continue pushing forward, find mentors, go to the SNMA, find mentors in the NMA and in the Cobb Institute, and sort of see like how they can really surround themselves with a community of people that are able to pour into them, life into them, and help them become the people that they're meant to be on this journey.
So thank you very much, Nina, today for this discussion and all of the information that you provided for us. Again, we're amazed with your ability to process all of this, but also to have a 360 view that's so clear, even though you're early in your career. And we pledge to work with you and with your colleagues to make your vision a success. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been an honor and an opportunity that I will forever remember. So thank you so much for this time.